Round 14 team list. We are rocking and rolling. We've got a few interesting faces on this screen. Reece Walsh, we have Cody Walker, who we heard today that was going to return. We got Sione Katoa and Jacob Kiraz. So we'll find out. I haven't looked at these yet, given they've just come out. 3:59. They did it early for us. I should have jumped on. Now, round 14, we have the Knights and the Eagles to kick this first one off. We did get news earlier today that Turbo was out and Lehigh Hopewadi keeps his spot at fullback after having an absolutely terrific performance last week and was great the week before on the wing. Oh, damn. For fantasy, I wish I did jump on him. A couple of weeks ago, we thought, I ended up jumping on in Supercoach, and just with how good that, he'd been looking down that left-hand side and just free-flowing footy and getting opportunities. And it worked out in that game, then back to fullback with Tommy injured. So that one has been perfect there. Now, for the rest of their back seven, Falalo keeps his spot over Jason Saab with that Jason Saab with that injury there. In the forwards, Gerbo is back at 13. No, wow. Okay, that's going to be an interesting one for those that haven't bought Big Jazz. He is currently in the interchange, maybe because he needs a bit of a rest, and that would be completely fair. Given this is the first game of the week, gives us an easy look to loop at least, so I'll be very happy to see how that one pans out following this game and make some decisions around that for my own team. Now for their forwards, Olakau'atu with a much better game, and he's someone that is still going to be a hit and miss type guy. Now with DCE in the 7 jersey, there's a chance that he doesn't make that origin side. I'd say probably 50-50 at this point. If he loses that, I doubt he would get the position back. So he could be an interesting 7 to look at for your sides, but we'll get to the rest of the teams there before we make that decision to if you take that punt or not. With Garrick, he's very, very cheap now, and I think is definitely a guy that you could look at as a potential purchase. He is coming up against the Kyle McCarthy and Fletcher Hunt left-hand side, which I think is a little bit nicer to go at than the other side with Gagai there and Schiller, who's been together all year, which is the helpful side of that. Kaipi's Paul's been really solid out there as well. So that's the Manly boys there. Burbo and Gerbo back in action. Jakey Boy is fairly cheap as well, so keep an eye out on him. Has had an extra week off from concussion, so if he has any of those problems again, unfortunately he'll miss more time. So that's the worry there. And for Jazz, what are we going to do? Obviously clearly holding, but if you haven't bought yet, maybe you can go for a different direction in someone like Damien Cook if you needed a hooker. For the Knights boys, back 7, same as last week, aside of Callum Ponga coming back in. Fletcher Sharp back to 6, which I think is a pretty decent little setup for a game against the Manly boys who played well last week. Expect Sharp to go back to some decent scoring and less chance of getting in the 20s, definitely with tackles and runs, his middle name in that section there. Ponga, if you hold on this far, play him, loop him, whatever you need to do. You probably got sort of 17 to 19 players available, depending on how the rest of the team list go. Dylan Lucas named, seems all good, so that's good news. You got Brayley, Cant, McEwen, and we got Celesta Moana, on the bench there. Jackson Hastings in 18. Oh, he's getting so close. And Greg Marzu in the 22. Okay, that will be interesting how that one plays out if he actually gets back in that side this week, or he's going to be close with Frizzell and Brody Jones in the 8 and the 10. Yes, that's really the big change with Leo, is seeing Elijah come into that bench. Gamble's out, Hetherington and Leo Thompson. Josh Allier out. Thought that might push Gerbo in that front row rotation, but it wasn't to be. Now for the Storm, they have the same back 7. Yeah, Howarth in the centres there. Nick Meaney is there, which is great news. And no one's out from both teams. That's good. Forwards, Eli Katoa, still a guy to look at, but I don't know, probably other guys to pick up beforehand with them having a bye next week, along with Jerome Hughes. Very, very interested. Following round 15, he becomes important for round 18, 19, definitely, which seems to be a pretty tough round as well. And will Stefano get picked in the Origin team with Barnett out? It's not too much with them. A little less relevancy. than the Cowboys, who don't have a bye, the only team that don't have a bye for the rest of the bye period. Drinkwater, a good purchase. Purdue, probably a good purchase. I don't know if you need to push with both of those guys up against the Storm at home. The positive with this Storm team going up against them is that they haven't been the formidable outfit that we thought they'd be over the last 6 weeks. Look, Harry Grant's back. We know that they play a lot better with him. And at home, I think that can be a bit of a tough one. They're getting the majority of their players back. Xavier Coates is there with Meaney, with Jack Howarth and Anderson. So outside of Will Warbrick, it's the starting 7 that they want with Harry Grant there. So it could be tough for Cows, but we also know that they have plenty of attack in them, and the Storm are letting points in. So this week, next week for Drinky, we know he's one of the 5 best wing fullbacks. And for Purdue, interesting one. At the price, it's pretty fun. He's not gonna go up too much in price unless he scores 50 plus, which we know he can do. So I just think he's maybe a 50-50 at this point. Not super excited either way, but could work out well. And at the next DPP ceremony, he should be granted a half spot. Now for the Dolphins and the Dragons here. And guys, this is a full week with just the one team on the bye, being the Roosters. For the Finn, Isaiah Katoa becomes, and Herbie Farnworth are the two guys that become very important in this team. They miss round 18, but they play every other game there, which is awesome. Oren Keeley gets his spot in the back row. Very, very fun. Lemuelu leaving him on the bench like he ended up last week. Unfortunately, we still don't see Maxi Plath. There he is on the 22 with JMK in the 21. So both those guys a chance to come in and play, which will be very, very exciting if we can see them come back into this and the Dolphins can go on and continue their decent footy, which they've very much improved upon since the start of the season. Very similar trajectory to the Cowboys, with just being awful at the start of the season and coming back and really improving. And this forward pack, it's very, very inexperienced. Kafusi being the big dog there, but in the back end of his career, and all of these guys stepping up and doing some great work. But it'll be awesome to see guys like Jeremy Marshall-King and Max Plath returning for that side. But just the two to look at, in my opinion, in Farnworth and Isaiah Katoa. Now for the Dragons, we do see Tuipulotu back, but Nathan Lawson keeps his spot. Is Tyrell Sloan just dropped? It looks like in the 21 for Tyrell Sloan. Holy. Blockbusting winger Tuipulotu is good to go. Tyrell Sloan drops to the reserve. So yeah, they just keep Lawson and drop Sloan. That's a big, big decision. So, wow, Nathan Lawson, we have a cash cow. Potential cash cow. Very exciting. And, with Holmes out next week, he'd definitely keep his spot for that one. So he could be an outside back to potentially, if he keeps his spot, to play in round 15 and 18. So, yeah, let's dive into him in the best buys video. And with Stewart out for looks like 2 to 3 weeks, Hamish Stewart keeps his 13 role. Toby Couchman keeps the edge role and should play really good minutes. Raymond Faitala-Mariner does come back onto the bench and could spell probably Luciano, to be honest. I think Toby is more likely to play the big minutes out on that edge. He's still going to make his good tackles. He just doesn't have to have the brunt of the work in the middle there. And if he's playing 80 minutes longer term, I think that's awesome. And then hopefully he can go back to the middle when they get a few guys back. Very, very interesting, that Nathan Lawson one. And then Damien Cook, we've got him as an option this week, especially now that Jazz Savunga isn't in the starting team anymore. But I did say a couple of weeks ago that, Jazz, go get your rest, because we're going to need you come round 15. And hopefully that's the exact thing that's happening there. But regardless, for Jazz guys, he should be able to get a decent score, even just playing 40-50 through the middle, which is what I would expect here. Gula still in the 18 jersey, so that might change, but he also didn't come into the side on the weekend. Hamish Stewart will be solid, but a pretty awkward price in the early to mid 500s now. But Couchman would be the guy to have a look at a target there. Sharkies and the Waz. Okay, back 7 is the same, apart from Sione Katoa coming back into this side. Iro, a really good option. Hines gets through one bye, which is helpful. Still think I would pick Isaiah Katoa and these types of players ahead of him. But yeah, it's great to see Katoa back, but he just straight swaps with Ronaldo, who was out of this one. Was it suspension for Ronaldo? Yeah. you can usually guarantee that. He's pretty good for on the injury side, but suspension, there's usually 1 or 2 there. And Teague Wilton's back as well, which is great news for him. And for the Sharks in general, like Burns can do a job, and that was great. He served a great purpose for that month. He drops to 18th man there. But anyone that jumped on Ronaldo, that's annoying. Iro is the guy. Adam Fanor-Blake, he's named. Seems like he's pretty well good to go, which is good news. Nikora, the running joke now. I think Matty asked, he goes, who's in the comments there on Mitch's video, who's going to average more, Burbo or Nikora? Which is just a crazy question, but it made me laugh because it's pretty close. So at AFB, if you're looking at a mid or need one, he's going to be sweet. And yeah, you can definitely go there. McInnes, similar boat there. For the Waz, now with Barnett being out, we see Jackson Ford go into that starting side there. Halasima gets the edge spot, but that's because Kurt Capel has moved to the centres for this week here with Rocco Berry being out with that injury. Correct? Injury? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So Halasima potentially a hold for another week. See how it goes. Not a situation that it's going to make or break you, whether you sell or you hold, but that's it for him. Fish Harris, if you need a mid, I think regardless of him missing 15 and 18, could be a really good guy to have a look at, given the price point there, and with Barnett out, his ability to get good minutes and score over a point a minute has been spectacular in this side, and it should continue happening. So there you go. That's that game there. Broncos and the Titans. Oh, they haven't got exemption, have they? Oh, they've got him in 18. Brimson, just in hope, it looks like. So Campbell's still in that 1 jersey at the moment, and they haven't yet moved Beau Fermor. I also thought Chris Randall, with the news on Verrills, that he would move into 9, but he's keeping that edge jersey right now, which shows that they're pretty weak in that department. But Sean Mullaney comes into that spot for a few weeks, so maybe that's the cash out hooker that you need. And yeah, we'll do a bit of a dive into him in the Best Buys video as well once I get a little bit more information on the youngster. I feel like I've seen his name, but I also have mates that have the Mullaney last name. Yeah, interesting there. Randall, someone to pay attention to be honest with you there. Yes, Fafita's coming back, but I think if Dave come back in the next couple of weeks, or potentially even next week at the earliest, then it could be a little bit of trouble on Randall losing his spot, but I also think there's a good chance that he plays a fair bit of 9. Yeah, they got Cleese Haas that could fill in that spot. I think Randall might switch between the 2 positions and is priced at a really good spot and has dual position with hooker. So he might be an interesting one to target instead of Jazz Tavanga at the price point right now, because he's got a couple of good games in him. He had a lower game, 18 or something, but had way less tackles than he does when he plays on an edge or in that 9 jersey. So that was an interesting one for the Titans. And for the Broncos, do we see any change? Reece Walsh is back. Jesse Arthur's back to the wing. Jensen starting with Haas. Pikura and Ricky together. Willison back to the bench. There you go. Blake Mozo, we thought he was going to take off this year, hey? Crazy how that one's worked out. Walters and Pakes just doing the business. But with this side, Haas is going to be just a big question. I think, for me, I'm contemplating selling him, potentially, using his price to get to guys like Campbell and Aitken and all these types of guys that we want to get into our sides. And it's hard to do that because majority of our guns are holds, especially if they're non-origin. And then we've got, the other mid-rangers that are a couple hundred K, 250K less than guys like Campbell. So that part will be interesting. But see how things go with Brimson. They're trying to get him off his, we'll get exemption for his concussion there. Yeah, not too much with the Broncos other than, I wouldn't touch Reece Walsh coming back from that injury. Now, Raiders up against the Bunnies, 2 p.m. on Sunday. We also have the Monday games as well this week. Tamale, a very easy hold now, coming off that good score and plays 18. We see Tom Starling back in the 9 with Owen Paddy at 14. And Morgan Smithies moves back to the interchange. My goodness, they muck around with this so regularly. And people just thinking Morgan Smithies going into big minutes, and then now he's back to the bench. So Corey at 13 will be interesting if that changes these minutes or not. Like last week was pretty low for him and Taps. Simi Sasangi back to, well, he played bench last week, didn't he? And Mariota. Is Paddy going to get extra minutes? So we're going to see Starling go back to where he was pre-suspension. We'll see how that goes. And hopefully Tarpany back into the 50 to 60 minutes would be nice, thanks. But yeah, Horsburgh, if you did hold on, I know a lot of people sold. I think in the top 1,000, it was like 200 and something people, which was massive. Some people might be looking at Hosking as a sell too. Probably ends up with similar minutes. But the big news here is Jamal Fogarty has been named to play this one, and hopefully is all good. So yeah, not too much else on the Raiders. They're less of a relevant side given their round 15 bye, but yeah, they're hopeful for 18. So be aware of that. Fogarty will be likely the best half available in round 18. For the Rabbitohs, Jack Whiten returns, Cody Walker returns. This is a pretty formidable side now, which is exciting to see. You'll get 1 week of it before guys are out for Origin like Latrell. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun game. Ewan Aiken, really good purchase this week. Keon Kolomatangi, if you didn't buy last week, I think you go for it again. Take the plunge, take the risk that he doesn't make the Origin side, or if he's in the squad, which I think he should be, that he's in he's not the 18th man, which is going to be unlikely that someone, a middle forward or edge forward is going to be 18th man, especially when their team plays on the weekend. So we'll see how that one plays out. But Aiken, really good buy. Have a look at the rest of the squad. I think it's going to help them score more points. Jamie Humphries had an issue with his leg. We'll see how he goes coming into this week. And if you do own Hubner, I think you hold on strong there. We've got Totola back in this side. Daphne Wiley back to 18th man. Crazy how that one's worked. And Ty Munro in the 20 jersey. There you go. Bentley Harpe is out with Whiten returning. Tigers and the Panthers. So for the Tigers side of things, Heath Mason is still the 6. Latu Fainu, the 14. I was just thinking that, how would you play that? They play late in the round, don't they? So I think some people will have a look at Heath Mason. And people mentioned it last week, and I was like, it seems like Latu Fainu is going to be the guy that they want there. But I think they must have been pretty happy with Mason last week. Or it's like, well, let's work Latu back slowly. And maybe Fainu is on the bench this week, but in the starting side next week. That's the kind of worry with seeing this now, because the ears perk up when we do see Heath Mason there and hear that he's playing in that 6 jersey. The other big news here is Tony Suka ends up getting the start on the edge there, with Alex Seyfarth moving to the middle with Twiley out this week. So I don't know if this is just going to be a 1 week type of thing. We see Gerald Skelton back at the side, do we? Maybe we do. That's exciting. Good to see Gerald back out there. He'll be helpful for this side as well. So yeah, a little bit of a change there. Sione Fainu is the other prop starter with Terrell. Still with, Pole being out. Still don't have him in the reserves there. Charlie Staines is the one that's gone. Brent Naden leaves the side as well. So they're the two that make way. And Talon De Silva still in the 19 jersey. Charlie Murray is at a debut, I think, for that young fella. So exciting there. But if you have Latu, play him in as a last resort. He could change to 6 or to 7, 6. Yeah. To 6 there for Heath Mason, and Mason goes back to 14. So just be aware of that. Don't know if we go for the Tony Suka one. Maybe you have a look next week, because when Twiley's back, if he's all good with his concussion, and he does return straight away next week, because he's had I think 7 or something in the last 3 or 4 years. Plenty. Similar to Gerbo, they might take a more conservative approach there for that one. Now with the Panthers side of things, back 7 stays exactly the same as last week. And then forwards are the same there with Sorensen in the side. Harrison Hassett does leave it. Who they got? Patea. Dane Laurie in the 17 with Summerton and Eisenhuth. So Isaiah Papali'i returning shortly, along with Luke Garner and Paul Alamotti in that 22. So those guys there dealing with injuries will come back soon, and they're pretty well full strength, following all that. So that could be a more fun game, like having 2 teams with a few changes, but having Skelton back will be helpful for that Tigers side. Now, Doggies and the Eels. We see Jacob Kiraz named. What a legend. That makes this very, very interesting. And the news that we did get was that Lockie Galvin would not be named. And he's in the 23, so he's in with a shot. But it sounds like at this stage it'll be very much likely a situation where, where's Papali? Josh in the 18 now. Does that mean Riley just goes back to 80 minutes? Sorry, getting distracted. Does he just play cup for a bit? Can we take a flyer on Matt Burton at this point? So, Galvin's not, definitely not someone to grab right now. Josh Curran will stay on the edge for one more game. He should go really well, but then should move back to the middle when Preston does return the following week. Hotboy, he's on the bench there. Last resort play, I think, with him. You don't want to play him off the bench. But he still could get decent minutes for one more week, I think, before Preston returns, and they got Satilli to come back in very, very shortly as well. So Burton, you could definitely take a flyer on. Jacob Kiraz makes it a bit more interesting. He's going to be not up against Lomax. He'll be up against Addo Carr, so that'll be a hectic battle. Burton's the main one there. If you hold him to Max King, happy days. Play him this week. For the Eels, we got Yongi. Penasini's really cheap as well. Yongi, I think you hold this week. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah, Riley, it looks like you probably play some decent minutes. If you've got Katonga, if you have an easy way to move him on, sweet. Just because he's not as helpful for us anymore with his round 15 and 18 bye. But he could be, if you're looking sideways, you could easily just hold him for the week. He's still got a relatively okay break even following the 350s in a row. So yeah, not a priority sell by any stretch. Sam Rani goes back to the bench now. Yeah, pretty well full strength. When Lomax is back, that's where Sam Rani ends up, and similar with Penasini, he's the starter in this side. So that dog side, it doesn't change as yet. I think if anything happens in that back line, then maybe Galvin comes in, but they'll want him to get set up pretty well in their system, I think, before getting him out there. And a shout out to a few guys in the WhatsApp chat for mentioning that. They're like, no chance over the next few weeks he'll make it. And my guess was sort of by week 3, I think he'll be in there. So we'll see how that plays out. But they also have a lot of players out next week, especially in that back line. So maybe they push Burton to centre next week or something like that to allow Galvin to come in with Crichton out. But they do have Kiraz returning. So that's great news on that front. All right, I think we leave it there, guys. TLT for the week. The next video you'll see from me will be the best buys video. That's the plan. And if it's not, it'll be the holds and the sells. We'll decide there a little bit later on. But thanks so much, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.